Screamed at for saving someone's life. I'm a full-time student getting my PhD at age 30, and I work full-time as a server. I've been working at this Greek bistro for the greatest people for almost 15 years now, and I started bussing at almost 16, and I'm now a manager. A few months ago, it's around 6, and one of our regulars, called Andy, comes in. Andy works at a mattress store and always comes in for lunch, and he's an awesome guy. Andy's a big guy, close to 400 pounds. Anyways, Andy shows up after work with a woman, and she's maybe a good 10 years or so older than him. It's obvious they're on a date, so we make a fuss over him, and the owner's wife gets him the best table and bring them complimentary glasses of champagne. He orders our platter of meat, and she orders a vegetarian platter. They're eating, and I hear a gasp. Andy's face is blue and his hands are over his throat, so I go over and give him the Heimlich while the owners call 911. I'm giving him back blows when his date whacks me with her purse. "You're hurting him. I took first aid and that's not right," she's screaming in my face while he's still choking. The owner pulls her away from me and she's still screaming, and then Andy's piece of steak goes flying and he's able to breathe. The paramedics are there and she's telling them I hurt them, and the paramedics tell her that I saved his life. Anyways, they end up taking Andy in because he was wheezing a bit, and she throws me a dirty look and follows them out. 2 days later, Andy comes in for lunch with his coworker and thanks me over and over and tells me that was the first and last date with that woman, and he brought his newest girlfriend in yesterday and she loved the restaurant, and best of all, she's nice. I feel like if I'm choking and someone's giving me the Heimlich, it's alright to let them do it a little rough, you know? It's a little more important to me to survive than not get hurt in this moment. I just love her smacking you with the purse. "You're hurting him." Well, his airflow being restricted and him turning blue due to lack of oxygen is also hurting him, so at this point, I just gotta get the steak out of his mouth. Good on you, a true hero in the Greek bistro. What's poppin', guys? It's your boy Scrub here, back again with another video. Today, I'm going to be telling you guys some of the coolest stories I found on Tales from Your Server, which is basically a subreddit where people who work in the restaurant industry just tell the crazy stories they've experienced. I like the subreddit, so I figured it would make a good video. Hopefully, you guys enjoy it, so without further ado, let's go. The owner of the restaurant kicked out one of my tables for yelling at me about a receipt. It was my first day at a pizza restaurant, and this place was always slammed. It's really where I learned how to be a good server, because before that I worked at overstaffed burger joints or Italian restaurants. Things were moving pretty fast, but I was doing surprisingly well. I had about 10 tables, and I was used to 3 or 4 table sections, and I will never forget this couple came in and sat down at table 24. They were an old couple. I'm talking about both gray-haired and overdressed to be at a pizza restaurant. I will say I did give them excellent service despite my frazzledness of starting a new job. I was feeling it and felt great about handling all my tables until I did mess up. The man at table 24 handed me his card to close out, and I'm busy. Didn't even have time to pick a wedgie if I had one busy. I go to the computer and swipe his card, and admittedly, I forgot to print out the itemized receipt, which I get can be frustrating, and the man at table 24 had every right to be upset. But instead of asking me to grab the itemized receipt, he begins loudly yelling in a small room with a deep and firm tone about how horrible I am at my job. No wonder I only got as far in my life as working at a pizza shop, and he kept going on with these terrible comments and wouldn't let me walk away when I tried. So now all my other tables just saw me getting ripped open, and I'm in the weeds after wasting time getting yelled at by this guy. The owner of the restaurant must have come in at some point because he saw this man yelling at me, came up to the table, and did the most awesome thing I've ever seen. "Excuse me, sir," he says to the man at table 24. "I'm the owner of this establishment, and I'm not sure what the problem is here, and frankly, I don't care. What I do care about is you belittling my waitress, so I'm going to ask you and your wife to leave and not come back to my restaurant." "Fine, but you'll be losing our business." "I really don't care, and don't want people like you in my restaurant anyway." It was the coolest thing I'd ever seen. The owner stood there and waited for these people to leave, and it was sick. After they left, the owner came up to me and said, "F those guys, you're doing a great job, and I wouldn't have hired you if you didn't show potential. If anyone else talks to you like that, I want you to tell them to F off and get out. I don't want their money." Coolest boss ever. I mean, I get why it would be frustrating, but I don't know why he feels the need to start screaming that you're a loser over an itemized receipt. My goodness, you'll be right back in 20 seconds with the receipt he so magically desires. Good on your boss, though. I think that's something customers need to understand, you know? The customer isn't always right, and if a business is really popping, then they can tell you to F off and keep running. It's only the crappy businesses that need literally every single customer that walks through the doors that are just gonna cave and sell you out. Guy tips big to impress date, but returns afterwards to take money back. We had a guy come in last night with his date, and throughout the evening, he was a picture of courtesy and good manners. He complimented me, thanked me every time I came to refresh waters or check on the table, and made a point to be forgiving of a kitchen mistake. Super extra nice. The dream customer, really. I appreciated it, but didn't delude myself that I was the source and figured he was just in a good mood because the date was going well. They were chatting, laughing, having a great time, so I assumed I was an indirect beneficiary. He was certainly in some kind of celebratory mood because he was sparing no expense. He asked for the highest quality wine, she got the most expensive entree, and he ordered one of every appetizer for her to sample when she made the remark that she was having trouble deciding. It was a real feast. So the evening starts wrapping up and I get the check and I ask if they'll be together or separate, and she starts to say separate, but he makes a big deal of saying, "Are you kidding? Together. Definitely together. You never have to pay when you're with me, babe." So on and so forth, and then slid me a credit card. I get everything sorted and bring out the receipt, and he fills it out, and the total comes to $289. He doesn't even blink and makes a big show of leaving a $100 tip and thanks me for my service and emphasizes what a lovely night they've had. Of course, a tip that size is exceptional, so I thanked him profusely, and he said there's no need to thank him and goes on a big tear about how underappreciated wait staff are, and to just think of it as a stand-in for all the other ingrates who don't treat me right, going, don't plan to tip, don't eat out, you know? Looking at the mesmerized girl the whole time and not giving me a glance. I could care less where he was looking. I was looking at the upcoming $100, so I thanked him again and said I hope to see them back soon, and that was that. So he helps her into her coat and off they go. Great night, I'm riding high. About 90 seconds later, he's back in the door without her, going, I think I left my... Then, when the door shut, looking to make sure she was out of earshot, he goes, without the slightest shade of shame or embarrassment, mark the tip down to $20, hon. I was just playing it up for my date. You understand. And turns to go. I understood, but not how he hoped I would, but I couldn't make a scene in the middle of work. That's not my place, so I just said one more time in order to give his conscience a chance to sink in. Okay, so you'd like to amend your tip from $100 to $20. Is that correct? And even though I didn't show a hint of displeasure in my voice, he shot back, extremely hostile. Yes, and if I see a cent over 20 on there, I'm gonna dispute the whole meal with my credit vendor, so don't try to pull anything. The most frustrating part of this for me was not even going from an over 30% tip to under 10%, but rather that this poor girl was being strung along with no idea of who the guy was behind her back, and it was extremely manipulative of him, which was a major red flag. I've had my fair share of toxic relationships in the past and really wish someone had pulled the blinders off my eyes, so I desperately wanted to do something to alert this girl to the trick the guy had pulled, hoping it would be a catalyst to her questioning his other actions. But again, I was at work and that's not my place, so I altered the bill and that was that. Then, just in time, something occurred to me and I darted outside to catch them in the parking lot. I got lucky. They'd parked on the street instead and he was still dealing with the parking meter. So I flagged him down and rushed across the street, nearly stumbling into traffic in my haste for a delicious moment. His date was already in the car but rolled her window down since no one expects the waitress to follow out to your car waving her arms like a crazy person. I made it across and said, more than loudly enough for her to hear, "Sir, we amended your tip from 100 down to 20 as you requested, but you actually need to fill out a different receipt reflecting your new total for our records. Your old receipt still has your original tip of 100 written on it, but since you just came in and asked us to change it to 20 instead, we can't have a discrepancy in our records. I hope you understand this. It's just a bookkeeping regulation that goes way above me and has nothing to do with your retroactive downgrading of your tip to $20 from $100. We're just glad you enjoyed your evening." His jaw was on the floor, but he tried to pretend as though he didn't know what I was talking about, trying to give me some line about, "I think you're after someone else," and I'd only come back because I'd forgotten my keys, but I would not let it rest. The more he played dumb, the more I repeated versions of, you wanted to change your tip from 100 down to 20. You came back in, and on and on. So we went back and forth for a few seconds when he finally said, okay, whatever, sorry for the miscommunication. If you need me to fill out a new receipt, I can. And I totally even-keeled was like, you only need to fill out a new receipt if you want to change your tip from 100 down to 20. And I'm guessing he didn't have the money in his account because he did it. He filled out the new receipt and his girlfriend was visibly shocked and the man was staring daggers through me and you could feel the rage emanating off of him. It was vicariously quite satisfying in place of the other toxic men I never got the confrontation with and all the bad tippers. Ironically, the exact kind he made a righteous speech decrying just a few minutes beforehand. And then off they drove. I'm sure never to patronize our restaurant ever again, but hopefully never go out again either, which would totally make it worth it. Bro, I think it's already cringy enough to, leave a giant tip and then go back in and secretly change it back. That's already cringe lord territory. That being said, the fact that he gave a giant speech about how wait staff just deserve bigger tips and he's a passionate supporter of waitresses and waiters everywhere, just to change it to, an absolute dookie tip. Not even 20%, just oh yeah, here's 20 bucks. Bruh, the balls on this dude. I understand why you needed to confront him on that one. He wasn't apologetic, no shame. Yeah, you know how it is. I just did that entire speech to look cool. You get it. Jerk gets exactly what he asked for. Last night I worked a 14 top and they were all terrible people. Like the douchiest people I've ever come into contact with. The royal family of doucheland. One guy sits down and orders a beer and says, every time you come to the table I want you to have a beer for me. I thought he was joking, so I leave and come back and he says, where's my beer? Did you really forget what I told you 2 minutes ago? Wow. So I said, oh, I'm sorry, it won't happen again. And for the next 2 hours, no matter what, every time I approached the table I left a beer. After about 45 minutes, the beer began to pile up, and a friend of King Douchebottom tried to take one that I put down, but I grabbed it and said, sorry, sir, this is your friend's beer, but I'd happy to get one for you if you like. Long story short, he ended up buying 25 beers at $8 a pop with a 20% mandatory autograt at the table, and he drank maybe 4. I've never felt so good in my life. It doesn't pay to be an arrogant person, folks. To answer some questions, they split the bill 7 ways and they didn't even look at the charges. I put down the bill and the cards went on top and their total bill was $1,200, everything included, beer, food, and all. This is not common at a 14 top where I work, but not surprising, and I came out making $240 before tip out. I work at an independent fine dining Italian restaurant outside of Chicago, and every time I put down a beer, he said nothing. If he would have acknowledged my presence and told me to stop, I would have, but he said nothing. I started to feel bad for a couple minutes, and then he yelled at me like a dog to get the food out faster, and that is what he wanted. I just want to reiterate that he asked for it, and also I was watching him drink, and if at any point his behavior consumption increased, I would have stopped, and he walked out the way he walked in, like a doucher. The beer was surrounding his seat area, just bottles and bottles and bottles. It was incredible. I mean, it is exactly what he asked for. 25 beers seems like a lot, though. I'm glad you were paying attention, because if you would have drank all those, he would have just been stumbling around the restaurant going, I love this place, and no one else ever gives me 25 beers. The pettiness is there. I'm also surprised that he didn't question it at all. You would think by the time he has 25 beers around him, he would say, stop, there's no way I can drink all of these. Is this just what he does at every restaurant he goes to, does his best to be as obnoxious as possible and order 25 or whatever drink he has? Is anybody else burned out by just how absolutely stupid the general public is? I've been back at work for about a month, and every shift there's always at least one person that has their brain completely switched off. The other day is a prime example. My restaurant is on a limited menu while most of the staff is furloughed. I'm greeting a table and a woman interrupts me, shaking her menu at me and asks, are you back to your full menu or is this all you have? Let's try to work through this together. I've given you a limited menu. I have not given you the full menu. What can we infer about the availability given this information? 2 days later, I'm opening the bar, and right when the door opens, this other woman makes a beeline for the bar that has no chairs at it and asks if it's open. No, you can tell that by the fact that there's no chairs here. My first week back, an eccentric regular was asking about our sanitation practices, and she asked if you're able to sanitize the glasses and plates. Do you mean wash the dishes? dishes? Yes, it's been our practice to wash the dishes after every use, even before the pandemic. I have these interactions several times a week. Have people always been this stupid, or have I just forgotten that being furloughed for 2 months? I haven't worked retail in a while now, but I did for years. And one thing that I can tell you from working retail is that, yeah, basically, however stupid you think the general public is, multiply it by like 7, and that's how stupid people actually are. I think the thing you learn in a service job, retail, serving, anything like that, is just how many people somehow manage to function with the brain of an NPC. And not even a good NPC, but like a GTA NPC riding a bike down the side of the street. It is ridiculous that you charged us for this appetizer, and how to bamboozle a Karen. This one time, an 8-top split the bill 4 ways because they were couples, and I did the whole inform me of any discrepancies speech and billed them out. 20% all around except one couple. The guy left me less than 10%, but no sweat, I'm not bothered. 20 minutes later, I see the cheap tipper's wife on her way back into the restaurant, all geared up for a fight. It's getting quiet at that point, just a few tables, which was a great audience for what was about to occur. She storms in, pulls out the bill, and indignantly points out one of the appetizers and said that it was shared and as such her husband should not have been charged. And says, "It's ridiculous that we have to pay for this." I was chilled and immediately felt a huge wave of pity for the husband who'd clearly been drilled in the parking lot for 15 minutes. I compose myself carefully, go all smiles and ask, "So you want me to reopen the table, refund the card, and then charge the card again for a different amount and process the table again and have us eat the cost of the appetizer?" "Yes." "Well, honestly, that's ridiculous, and it's a lot of work, but I think I can make it right." And I pulled out my wallet and tried to hand it to her. "Seems like we owe you some money. How much do you want?" "What are you doing? Can't the restaurant cover it?" "Sure, but I'm not gonna ask my boss to cover this one. The food was good, right? And until I messed up with the bill, the service was good, so it's my mistake. This is between me and you, so let me make it right. How much do you want? $20? $40? She starts looking really uncomfortable at mugging me all of a sudden, and I fan out my float, and it's not a lot, but I was 23 and looked at 2. "Go ahead. What was the app? $13 plus tax and tip? Here, take a 20 for now, and you actually made a few dollars tonight, right? Is that enough? Do you want more? You can have my whole wallet," and I politely tried to give her more. Shell-shocked, she slowly takes the 20 out of my hand and walked out of the restaurant, head hanging way down. Sometimes it's very clear what people want, and sometimes giving it to them makes them see what's really happening. A grown woman is leveraging her bad attitude and emotions to win one over on some kids, some business, anything at all. I would have paid $500 easily to have never seen her again. I got a good deal, and I'm still awestruck she had the gall to take it. Third worst customer of my life. Bro, I'm just flabbergasted that she actually took the money. You know, it's one thing to be sitting in the parking lot for 20 minutes working up the courage to come back in and complain. That's silly, right? But on top of it, yeah, when the person pulls out their wallet and says, "What? How much do I owe you for it?" You're supposed to go, "Oh, okay, never mind. It's not that big of a deal." My goodness, this appetizer must have really pissed them off for them to actually come back into the restaurant and demand the $20 bill. This Karen just was doing anything to get an Andrew Jackson in her wallet. Family racks up a $100 bill because they don't understand that ordering the same dish multiple times does not mean you only get charged for it once. I'll keep this short and not bore anyone with any unnecessary backstory about the type of restaurant or anything about the setup. All you need to know is that it's fairly small, so I work alone with one chef. It's family friendly, and we have a wide menu with options ranging from $7 dishes to our most expensive $17.50 dish, so it's not very pricey at all. I received a phone call asking specifically about our $17.50 dish, which is our seafood paella. It's made fresh to order and takes about 15 to 20 minutes to make. Not to mention, seafood is expensive, so the price is justified. The person I was speaking to asked if we were a buffet, and we're not, and I told them we're table service and we can do the paella at any time. I asked if they wanted to make a reservation because of the time it takes to prepare it, and they said no and hung up, so I went about my day. A few hours later, a family of 4 comes in and they sit down, glance at the menus, and wave me over with a snap of the father's fingers, which you have to love. Is this necessary? Please show me the paella. I direct him to the back of the menu where it's listed very clearly and shows the ingredients and the price. I want that. I write it down. The mother says she wants a paella, followed by the 2 kids saying the same, so I confirm. So that's 4 paellas. You don't want to share? No, we'll all have paella. So I put the order in after reminding him it'll take 15 minutes and offered them drinks, but they want water. I start getting the cheap vibe, but they ordered 4 paella, so how cheap could they be? The food comes out and they love it, and the dad asks if he can get one to go, so I put the order in so it'd be ready when they finish. We're at 5 paellas now, but that's $90 before tax. I let the chef and owner know my concerns that the family may object to the price despite having it made clear to them, and he gave me the okay to give them a 10% discount right off the bat because he's a good guy. The time comes to bring the bill and the man's eyes go wide. I wrote out the bill so that every paella has $17.50 next to it, and I watch as realization hits and he opens his mouth to object, and I immediately said that the owner said to give you a discount because you ordered 5 of the most expensive dish and he wanted to thank you. He was happy to hear that you enjoyed it enough to order another to take home. That shut him up, and I watch as he scans every last line of the bill and then settles on the tax, which was $11. You added a tip for yourself? No, sir. What's this then? The tax? Honestly, I wasn't expecting a tip at that point, but he did leave me 10%, so basically the discount we had given him. They said the food was excellent, but I highly doubt they'll be back. Bro, at what restaurant does it ever make sense that they'll just give you endless portions of whatever you ordered? Oh, I'll have 1 spaghetti and then give me 5 plates of spaghetti so that way I can feed my entire family. I'm not sure of any place where how it works. Maybe that's because he thought it was buffet style, but even then, wouldn't it be bizarre that you're at a buffet that doesn't have a buffet? Oh no, yeah, we're buffet style, but you tell me what I want and I bring you endless portions of it, even though it says on the menu that each one's $17.50. At least he left a tip. You do have to give him that, man. Anyways, guys, I think that's gonna do it for the video. Hopefully you enjoyed. If you did, I'd really appreciate you taking a second to press the like button, comment down below, subscribe if you're new, all that good stuff. I'd really appreciate it, especially considering this is a new subreddit, okay? So it deserves likes, I guess. You know, it makes sense, okay? Just press it. Other than that, if you really want to help me out, I did make a playlist for each of the subreddits and, you know, like Reddit videos in general. A link to that is in the description, so feel free to check that out. And I know a lot of you are saying you missed the reaction videos. I've been doing them on Scrubby, which is my 3rd channel, so if you want those, check that out. But yeah, on that note, guys, I think that'll actually do it for the video. Thank you all so much. I appreciate all of you for watching. Don't get anyone pregnant. If you do, make sure they're hot, and hopefully I will see each and every single one of you guys next time with another video. I'm out. Peace.